What you gonna do, brother, when Jeff Townsend Media runs wild on you?
Have you been searching for a podcast? Do you want to learn from some great content creators? Well, you've come to the right place. Indie Podcaster with your host, Jeff Townsend, the Indie Podcast Father.
All right. This is Jeff Townsend. Thank you for checking out another episode of Indie Podcaster. This podcast is made for podcasters and other content creators. Certainly don't consider myself a guru, nor either do any of my friends that will be featured in these episodes. But what we do like to do is talk content creation, pick each other's brains, and have a good time. I'm proud to mention that this podcast is sponsored by Indie Drop-In. Now, let me tell you something about Indie Drop-In. This is an awesome network that my friend Greg has created. What he does is drop episodes from independent content creators into his established podcast audience on his feed, and he shares your episodes to an audience that already exists. Yes, it's like free advertisement and promotion for your podcast. He spent a lot of time, money, and effort building it, and he already has an audience interested in the content, and he can certainly help you by sharing your content. It's great promotion. Go to indiedropin.com/creators and check it out. If you're a comedy, true crime, paranormal, or various other different kinds of podcasts, you can benefit from this. So I really encourage you, once again, go to indiedropin.com/creators and see if you can get your stuff featured on Indie Drop-In. We'll go back to the podcast here, Indie Podcaster. So what we've currently been doing is sharing content from 3 different projects that I'm involved in. The first is Good Morning Podcasters with my good friend Fuzz Martin. We also do some content on Podcasting Sucks. And then in these episodes, you will also hear some content from Podcasting Power Hour. Podcasting Power Hour is a live thing we do on Twitter Spaces. We get a whole bunch of great podcast minds together and we talk podcasting. So if you're a content creator, a podcaster, I think you'll take something away from every episode of the content I'm going to share with you. With that being said, make sure you check out Indie Drop-In and make sure you enjoy this episode. I think it's important that we all continue to learn and grow every day, and that will help us become even better content creators. That's certainly what I try to do, learn something new every day. I'm excited to share this content with you. I think it'll be a learning experience for you. Let's get to this episode, and I hope you have a great time listening to it.
Welcome to Podcasting Power Hour with your host, Jeff Townsend, a.k.a. the Indie Podcast Father. I'm your co-host, Greg, from Indie Drop-In Network. Podcasting Power Hour is recorded live every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitter Spaces. Every week, an experienced panel of podcasters and other experts will tackle your podcasting questions. Special guests on the panel today: Jennifer Furbo, founder and CEO of J-Vision Advertising. Jim Mallard, host of The Mallard Report. Ariel Nissenblatt, founder of Earbuds Podcast Collective and community manager at Squadcast FM. Tanner Campbell, host of Good Morning Podcasters. Mark Binder, founder of Podtrix. We will, of course, put links to all of our guests and any relevant information in the show notes. All right, let's get this party started.
Anyways, we'll get Podcasting Power Hour kicked off here. I'm Jeff Townsend, of course. You probably hear Tanner chatting with me. I was going to say you're Podcasting Sucks guy, but you're the Good Morning Podcasters guy.
I love that rebrand.
And of course, he's one of the most influential people in podcasting.
Stop doing that shit. You do that shit every time. Stop doing that. That's dumb. Makes me look like an asshole when you do that. Don't do that.
You're an influencer of large proportion. Anyway, like I mentioned earlier, Jen is a good resource in marketing and advertising. And we've got Jim Mallard up here. He is been podcasting forever. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Jeff. Not forever, 11 years now. Just hit that.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jen.
Hey, Jen.
Yes, I see that Jim is around here. So hi, Jim.
Good to see you. Good to hear your voice again.
Yes, right?
Glad that
Have you guys worked together before?
she was on my show
Yes.
before, and yes, and so it's exciting that she's a great resource for people. So I'm glad to see she's in this community as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't even know how we got connected, but I'm glad we did. Okay, so whoever wants to come up first and ask your question or whatever you got going on this week or challenges you're facing, go ahead and request. We've got some of the usuals in here: Ike, Chris, David, Mark Binder, and of course the Western podcast. We've got a lot of good people here.
Can we talk about Buzzsprout's new ads platform? I just put a podcast on there. It looks pretty cool.
Sure, yeah, kick it off with that, and I'll get people up here that are requesting.
So my thoughts on this are that it's going to sell out real quick. I'd love to know what you think, Greg, because you've got more experience than I do promoting podcasts within apps and on platforms like this. So what's your high-level takeaway? What are your high-level thoughts on this new offering? You think it's going to fill up quick, or you think they've got a lot of inventory?
I actually haven't looked at it yet, so I'll let my determination. I'll give my determination then. But I was just trying to sit here thinking of a way to irritate you so that you get into a coughing fit and have to hang up. So that was what I was actually working on.
They've said basically you spend $100, we'll expose you to 5,000 listeners. So that's 5,000 verified downloads. 200 is 10,000. I think 300 is 15. That just goes by 5,000 increments. I put one of the podcast shows that I work with on there called Wiki Listen. And right now it's in the matching phase. So it costs $200, and I'll have more information on how well that works. I didn't want to jump in there with all my clients, but I figure I might as well jump in there early because, I mean, if this is a display ad there's a limited amount of people who can participate, I would assume, in order to promise that you're going to get that total, you're going to get delivered to that whole 10,000. So it'll be interesting because Greg, you turned me on to advertising with Player FM. I think it was you. And, as soon as I went to them, it was like, I got a 3-month wait before I can even get in.
Yeah. You have to really build a relationship and get in when you can. So it's not like I have, $1,000 right now and I just want to find some place to spend it. You kind of have to plan for it. But what I like about what you just said, though, is the matching phase is very interesting to me because Spreaker also has this, give us $100, we'll give you 5,000 downloads essentially. And what happens is you just get added to their dynamic, their programmatic dynamic ads platform, and it goes out like any other ad. And it works, but it's not targeted enough for my liking. So I'm interested in the targeting.
Yeah, Danny Brown was saying earlier that they don't provide any stats yet, just how many pods that your ads run on.
Wait, who was saying that about what?
About this Buzzsprout. Danny hopped on there.
Well, it does seem to only want to show you on shows which are in your same category. So that's some kind of targeting.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so let's get it going here. Mark Minder. Let's get him out of the way because Lord knows he was going to consume a lot of time.
Wow, love you too, Jeff.
I'm just kidding, man.
No, yeah. So I'm really just here to listen and chime in wherever. I don't really have any too specific of questions this week. Really, as I'm listening, I'm also working on the feed importer, which should go live in the next hour. So I'm just here to chime in wherever. Not any too specific of questions. So you can skip over me if you want.
Okay, will do. But I will give you a second to talk about what you're doing and what you've started. I'll give you 30 seconds.
Alrighty, so I'm the founder of Podrix, a podcast hosting platform for creative people. And basically what I'm working on right now is the feed importer. Whether you're hosted on Transistor, Anchor, Megaphone, you name it, Podrix can import your feed into the system and start hosting and distributing your audio. That's what I'm working on. If you have questions, feel free to shoot me an email. hello@podrix.com.
Oh, and breaking news, I'm starting a podcast hosting company for non-creative people. So if you're really bad at it and you suck, that's just come over here it's just like Podtrix. It's just called Greg Tricks.
Old Greg Tricks.
So, old Greg Tricks. Mark's like, wait a minute, what is happening right now?
At first, I'm like, oh no, my heart's skipping a beat. I'm like, oh wait, no, it's Greg, it's fine.
All right,
just
Mark.
kidding, man. Just kidding.
Appreciate the time, Mark. All right, we'll go to LA. Go ahead. Do you have some questions or issues you're facing with podcasting?
I actually do have a question, and it's Lay, not LA. It's Lay. So my question is that I know so much about so many different things, and my podcast is called Can Lounge. I started it back in November, and I kind of hit like a hump, where it's like, what do I really post about? Like, what topic do I really like delve into? And I just love talking, So it's like I'm trying to figure out exactly how do I narrow down that niche, like to figure out where your market is to be able to like really become the robust podcast that I'm attempting, to cultivate. So that would be my one question. Like, how can you really narrow down what it is that you want to talk about? Or should it just be like a free for all? Like, that's kind of like where I'm at with mine.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a free for all is always a really tough sell. But let me ask you before we kind of deep dive into this with a lot of the people that are up here. What is it that you like talking about? Like, what's your favorite thing to talk about if you had to pick a topic?
My family and my kids. Like I'm always like pushing how, women power, like, hey, women, guess what? We have power. Let's use it. We are forming tomorrow's members of society type of deal. But I also am a cannabis connoisseur, and it saved my life. And so that's kind of where I got my idea for my podcast, is why it's called Canna Lounge. So it's like you can have these conversations while having your spliff or whatever, So I wanted to be able to like incorporate that in some type of way.
All right. Well, I like that. Sorry for the LA. I was just watching all these LA Laker news going on, and I made an assumption. My apologies. I'm trying to get Ariel Nissenblatt up here, my buddy, but she is not taking the request. So we will start out with the king of Niche. He eats Niche for breakfast. Greg, you want to kick it off?
You burned your bridge with Ariel. She's just like, no, I just can't do it today. Honestly, I think Jeff probably asked the right question of, where do you think you can talk, with authority, and who do you think you want to talk with authority to? Like, where can you provide value? I mean, anybody, you can make a podcast about anything, and you don't have to, be chasing giant download numbers or anything like that. I think you have to really figure out what result you want to have. Like, do you want to make an impact in a specific field? Do you want to be known as a thought leader somewhere? Do you want to make money? Do you want to, be an advocate for, like you said, for certain principles? And then I would formulate your podcast around those things to make sure that in at least every episode you touch on creating value in that space that you want to be in. And really, I mean, there's no trick to it. You just have to be relentless at providing value to the stakeholders that you're targeting.
Beautiful. Let's go to the influencer, Tanner Campbell.
God, I really don't like you, Jeff. I'm putting my sprinkles on my chocolate ice cream right now, trying to self-medicate this COVID.
Tanner, you going to share that ice cream?
No, I'm not. I'm going to eat this whole thing, baby.
All right.
So I like what Greg just said, but what's your purpose here, Lay? Sorry.
My whole purpose is just to spread a good ass vibe. Like a lot of people have like lost that whole hey, let's be positive type of thing because the world is a dumpster fire. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But like I just told my daughter, it's like Hakuna Matata. Like let's live like there's no worries. So why not push that principle and understand that we have power and that we can literally change everything with just a simple mindset switch. So it's like each one teach one type of deal,
To what ends? You're gonna want to measure the success of doing this in some way, right? So, what would indicate to you that you were being successful in spreading good ass vibes?
I have been homeless approximately 6 times, and I have made it through every single situation in my life with a smile on my face. I have buried a daughter. I have lived through domestic abuse. I have lived through so fucking much in my small amount of 35 years. And everybody always asks me, how do you stay so optimistic? How do you stay so positive in the face of adversity? It's just a simple choice, simple mindset switch. For some, it may not be as easy. And obviously, I know tactics and methods. I do meditation, I do breathing, I do Reiki healing, I listen to binaural beats and all of that good jazz. But it's like, literally, I've had people ask me, how do you stay smiling? And that's what gave me the focus, I guess you could say, of even wanting to talk to other people and advocating for other women who are homeless or have been homeless, or, advocating for kids, advocating for the information that I do have, and advocating all of that. So it's like my adversity, my sadness actually turns out to make me happy, if that makes sense in some sort of weird way. Like, I chose to be happy no matter the circumstance. Some people think I'm overtly optimistic. I really don't care. But that's how I was, I'm going through this and how I wanted to come across in my podcast. It's like, dude, why be negative? Life's a shit show already.
Okay. Yep. So you want to encourage more people to feel more positive, to think more positively, to pull themselves out of the funk.
Exactly,
maybe.
And take your power back.
Okay, so let's say you're doing that with your podcast. What is evidence to you that that's working?
I guess myself is the only evidence, and I mean, I'm not saying that other people don't do this, because I'm pretty sure they do, but myself is the only evidence that I see.
Here, hold on, Tanner, for a second. My thing is, like, why are you're doing it? I'm not sure.
Why am I doing it?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's for the reason that Tanner's trying to get to exactly.
No,
he's trying to ask you that.
Yeah, I'm trying to get her
why
to say the reason.
Is my kids. My kids are my why. So, like, their lives, the breaking generational curses, poverty, having them understand that you can create anything from nothing, that you can literally change your life overnight, simple mindset. So my kids are always going to be my why I move forward with anything that I do creatively. So I also do painting. I also think there's several things that I do creatively. So it's like, your creation is your power. And they're the reason how I found that out and what motivated me to find that out.
I think what I'm getting at here, Lay, is that your initial question was, and please correct me if I've misunderstood, was what do I choose to talk about? And I think we've identified to some extent that you want to talk about positivity in general for the purposes of lifting people up. So, I feel like in order for us to really structure that a little better so that you have like a plan, because it sounds like you already talk about doing things positively, right? Like, that's just in your character. I can kind of tell you've got a high energy. You seem pretty cool. But it seems like the question you asked makes it seem like you don't have any direction with your podcast. And so I'm trying to get you to come around to some kind of measurable thing, like more one-on-one interactions with people, emails, like something that you can say, if I see more of this happening, I can feel like I'm doing what I want to do correctly. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are, because a lot of the things that I post, like, I keep track of my analytics and all of that. So, like, I'm able to see that people are seeing my stuff, but I'm not necessarily gaining the followers. You see what I'm saying? So I see the numbers and I'm in the thousands on certain platforms and all that good jazz. But it's like, I'm not gaining the followers to go with the views, if that makes sense. So it's like, I know you're there and I see you listening or I see you looking. But at the same time, I'm not gaining my Canada Lounge family, if that makes sense. So it's like, is my niche wrong, or am I, like, that's the direction that I'm trying to, like, figure out, because I have many people that I talk to, a couple hundred followers, so it's not a big deal, but it's just, I want to grow that platform a bit more.
I mean, you guys know where I'm going to go with this, and it sounds like she needs to structure a business, but I don't want to jump into that without giving other people a chance to weigh in here.
Fair enough. Jim, you want to chime in on this at all?
Yeah, I have a thought, but it's going to sound counterintuitive at this point. And this may be the first time I've ever even broached this subject. So you feel free to shut this all down if you feel the need to, guys. But I'm thinking she might be better served being a guest on other people's show and producing short stories, like on an almost daily basis, that she puts out, wrapped around if it's trying to build a mailing list, so she can bump that out, because the energy's great. And I think she'd almost be better served being a guest than being a host, because I'll speak from my experience. When I'm interviewing somebody, I'm giving them the platform, and I'm not necessarily showing my full energy and my full self. I'm giving them the stage. And I think if she was on my show, she'd be a great guest on my show. That's how I'm just feeling. Like, I think if she got out there and did more of those shows, she might build that little seed of a podcast or a mailing list, and then it would probably grow to the following that she thinks she needs or is not seeing because people are listening but not converting the following.
Yeah, I feel like Jim's onto something there because Lay, if your if your goal here is to reach more people and change lives and get people to think positive, I mean, I know this is a podcasting room, but the podcast isn't really the way to do that. Writing a book or being a speaker or having something of value that people can. I think being a guest on other people's show and having something like that is probably a better approach to achieving this really high-minded goal that you have.
It's funny that he said short stories, because I was actually thinking about writing short stories and just reading them and like changing the complete direction of my podcast actually this week. And I had wrote it down, like I got a post-it note. I'm like, short stories, and maybe like read them as, people come in and they can come back each week and hear the different chapters or whatever. So that you said that kind of sent a little ringer off in my ear. So what you're saying, it does make sense. It does make a lot of sense.
I'm not one to put limitations on what a podcast is. So I don't. I think there's a lot of different things you can do with podcasts. It's pretty broad, but I do want to give Jen and Ariel a chance to chime in if they want to at this one. Jen, go ahead.
Hey, Jeff. Yes, actually, I do have a couple of thoughts. First of all, you do have a niche, Lay, and the only thing for you to narrow it down is basically to what will make you unique from the rest of the people. Like, there's a lot of people out there that they do provide positive thoughts and trying to change their lives. However, what makes you different from the rest? Like, is it just your experiences, maybe similar to others? Like, that's something that you want to look for. When it comes to podcasting, I'm not an expert on it, but like, if you're going to create a podcast, I will make it more from a self perspective and experience. Like, people will interact that way and maybe do collaborations with other people so they can share their story as well. That could be a great idea to share on a podcast. Correct me if I'm wrong. But from an advertising perspective, like, you just have to differentiate yourself from that niche that everyone else is in and make it yours, basically. Bring in your unique experiences, what happened, what you experience, and what did you learn from it, most likely. That will be the best advice that I can give you.
Ariel, you have anything you want to speak to on this?
I missed the question, so I'll pop in from now on.
Copy that. Hey, well, thank you for coming up here and asking that. And I think just by asking those kind of questions, that's going to help you find the answers that you're seeking, because I think only you have those, answers. And that was so cheesy and generic, but I think it might be the case in this scenario.
Thank you, you guys. I appreciate it. You've given me a bit of some advice, and it's always good to learn knowledge from others, because then you can take it and teach somebody else. So I definitely do appreciate it.
Absolutely, no problem. We'll go ahead to Cody.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you all.
Hey, nice to meet you, man. You got any questions or?
Really, I just had a question of what it's like to run an independent podcast, because I'm assuming you're pretty much doing this all by your lonesome.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us are. It is a lot of work. I think we can all speak to that. It's really has to have a certain level of dedication to it. But I think we all start them for different reasons. Some of us, would start it the business mindset, like Tanner and Greg. Ariel, who was just in here, she's a listener now. She works in different, things throughout the industry. So then there's people like me who have just never necessarily done it for full-time living, had some decent success, but just I really enjoy doing it. But it is a lot of work. I will let somebody else speak to that.
I know you feel, I'm myself, and I guess you can call an indie filmmaker of sorts, which I pretty much do everything. I edit, I shoot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of us do put in all that work on all aspects of what we're doing. Anybody else have anything to speak to on that?
I mean, I would say it's a lot like what you're doing, Cody. Yeah. I mean, it's imagine having 2 full-time jobs. I mean, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just less visual. Probably easier, but not much.
You're funny, Jim. You're a funny man. I ever told you that?
That's why you have me here, isn't it?
I mean, you wouldn't have to imagine it was like having 2 full-time jobs if you just started it like a business in the first place. Then you could just have 1 full-time job, Greg.
No, you can't. At least I can't.
Some of us have costs and expenses, Tanner.
I think everyone does.
I live in Denver.
Tanner lives in his parents'
extreme cost.
There's this little thing called money. Apparently, it's a finite resource.
It's not an issue.
They print it all the time.
Tanner says there's no more room in his mom's basement for me, so
Yeah,
we're stuck.
exactly.
Yeah, I live in my grandma's house, so I'm in.
Hey, Cody. Well, thanks for coming up, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course. It was nice meeting you all, and funny enough, this is actually my very first podcast.
Nice. Welcome.
Yeah. Welcome.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of these days you'll host a space talking about indie filmmaking and we'll join and go, we're thinking about making a movie.
Really? I'm actually writing my feature film at the moment.
Is it
Exciting.
the life and death of Tanner Campbell? All right, we'll move on. We have limited time here. Western, go ahead.
Hope to be the next one.
Okay.
Hey guys, so I just had a question for you guys. You guys spoke about this a little bit in the past, but I am trying to have with my followers. I get a okay amount of listens every week, but I don't really get a lot of interaction with the people who listen to my podcast. And I'm wondering if you guys have any tips on how to get more quality interactions with the people.
So Western, is this more quality interactions for the sake of some kind of sales or business, or are you just looking to get more personal with people?
Right now, it's just looking to get more personal with people.
I found that I love Discord servers.
I knew it.
Yeah,
Here we go. I swear they pay you. My gosh.
Discord doesn't pay me. I don't even know how Discord makes money. But yeah, I mean, I love it. I do a podcast on podcasting. I think I've got about 300 or so regular daily listeners. It's a daily show. And I think about 30 or 40 of them are in the Discord. That feels pretty cool. They're very supportive, and they always get to, they get access to me, which is really not too beneficial. They get access to me every morning anyway, but they get access to each other, which I think is a pretty big benefit for them. I've seen a lot of really cool collaborations come out of the Discord, and to get to be part of that and see that going on and, feel like I'm at least partially responsible for it is a pretty good feeling. So I like Discord.
I think also, Western, that the big thing is also, who are your listeners now, and branching out and discovering people that more and more people that are more interested in your content. Because I know right now you have a lot of support from fellow podcasters. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the big thing is when you actually get people that are interested in the topic, it's a lot more organic engagement. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you have a fairly interesting niche. I was looking at your profile, and it's country music that is not well known or played on the radio. Am I getting that close? Yeah. So, I think one of the things you got to do is you got to start interacting with people in other spaces, like Tanner was saying, outside of your podcast. It doesn't have to be Discord. It can be, going and listening to a live stream together, or following somebody on Twitch where you're both in the audience. I think you have to figure out ways to get people to want to do whatever it is you're talking about, right? It's like, it never really works when you're like, hey, send me an email if you have interesting ideas, or hey, rate me on Apple Podcasts or whatever. That stuff either happens organic, or they desire to do it for some reason that you've told them, right? And this is so evident to me with Buy Me a Coffee, right? Like, Jeff can't get anyone to buy him a coffee, but Jeff's listeners buy Tanner coffees. So, you have to tell people what to do. You have to think of something.
Tanner's podcast because of mine.
Yeah. So you have to think of stuff. You have to think of stuff that people want to do and give them a compelling reason to do it. And that's how you build. It's like how you build friends in real life. You can't ask someone to come over your house and just stare at each other at the kitchen table. Like, you have to think of something to do. And, you have a common interest, which is a great kind of filter. So I would start testing the waters, like pick a Twitch user that you can support and go stream a concert or, something like that. That's where I would start. I would just be a real person with real interests in your niche and invite your listeners to do that stuff with you.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I really appreciate all the knowledge and stuff that you guys have.
I'm going to throw one more on here for you. I'm going to say Twitter is your best resource. Just get out there. I know I used to do this back in the day. Of course, I'm going to give you advice that's probably 5 years old, but I'm a paranormal guy. So when Coast to Coast AM would tweet something, I had notifications on my phone, so it would notify me whenever they post. And I'd just jump on there and make a comment from my podcast account. So everybody that's seen that post would see my interaction with it, which wasn't spammy. It was just a comment on whatever. And then they got to know me a little bit through that. And then
Tanner and Greg, are you guys all muting everybody?
I didn't. I might have. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
Anyway, sorry, Jim. Somebody was rude, and it was not me.
That's okay. I don't even know when you muted me. So, yeah, just go out and try to steal. I don't want to say steal a community, but there's already communities out there that are of value that you can get a few members from and seek out those people. Because, like I said, I was in the paranormal, so I went out and found the paranormal community that was already built and kind of just bled through and stole a few, and then went somewhere else and stole a few others, and now people are stealing them from me. So it's all good.
Yeah, there's no shortcut to participating, unfortunately. I wish there was. I wish I could buy an ad that proves my participation.
That's like one of those motivational posters that I had in military school.
It's more like a collaboration, like in between audiences. It's not like a competition or stealing or anything like that. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, I know. But, stealing sounds more exciting then. Come on.
And Western, I don't know if you've explored it, but and it's probably been years since I've built anything on this particular platform, but I know that you can add podcasts to Bandcamp, and I'm sure you're familiar with Bandcamp as a musician guy, so maybe there's some opportunity there to build some community.
You can check out MySpace too.
No, Bandcamp is hot, dude. Don't
just messing with you.
MySpace.
Jen, do you have anything else? It was a good collaboration. Bringing that up is good. Take that as... What'd you say?
No, I was trying to listen to what you said.
No, I was saying it was great to bring up collaboration. That was good. Do you have anything else?
Well, besides the collaborations, I think you guys were like covering everything. Try to bring in the audience up with you and collaborate just with you, not just with other creators as well. But I don't know, like with your audience, like they want to see, maybe know more about you, get to know what do you do. But also, like you guys said, to try to spread the word in different other platforms and participate in other events. That's going to spread the word and people will get to know you even better.
Yeah, and Jim didn't... Well, I don't know. Jim got muted, but I don't think he said this. He said Twitter, but I don't think he specifically said Twitter Spaces. I mean, you're talking about music. You could probably have one of these spaces, invite in one of these lesser-known creators, and do a live listen to, I don't know, a new song or something. That probably builds some community.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so somebody speaking of community, somebody just bought me a coffee or something. So if you did that in this room, I appreciate it.
That is amazing.
Yeah. What a great call to action that I didn't even call. So
I doubt it was one of Tanner's listeners.
It was me. No, it wasn't.
So whoever it was, thank you. I will personally thank you here as soon as I figure out who it was. Okay, I do want to go to Chris next, and I'm going to give Jen the opportunity to go first because we've been putting her on the last bit of it. So thanks, Western, and we'll go to Chris.
Hey, guys. I have a question. What besides, Google and Facebook ads and all the regular ones, do you guys have any alternative ad ideas?
Pay. Oh, sorry, Jen. You were going to go first.
Go ahead.
No, that was totally rude of me. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. You can answer.
You're saying paid, Chris?
Yes.
There are other options, and I think Greg can go into pretty big, good detail with them, but they do tend to get pretty pricey. For example, Player FM that I'm using right now for a couple of clients, their bronze package starts at $2,000 for a 2-week run, which is, generally speaking, more money than an indie podcaster wants to spend on promoting their podcast? Greg?
Yeah, so the list is so long. You really have to decide if you want to do, like you said, social. Like there's all the main ones: Google, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, like that kind of stuff. Then there's in-app, which is by far the easiest, until you move up the chain, right? Like if you get into Player FM and Castbox and those folks, like you have to talk to somebody and buy a package. I've done almost all of them, and they all have their pros and cons. I'll say one of the easiest ones to do is maybe this Buzzsprout one we were talking about earlier, and Podbean has something similar that's more targeted. You can actually pick the shows you want to run your ad on. So I would look into that, maybe Buzzsprout and Podbean, where you record your own ad and give that a try. I mean, $100 for 5,000 downloads is, for a dynamic ad, is kind of pricey in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, there's unlimited options for marketing. I mean, if you're not on somebody's show once a month, I would do that first before I spent any money. I would be sure that you're participating with your fellow podcasters as a step one.
And I know Ariel is probably down there right now, even though she's not a speaker. She's saying, what about newsletters, guys? What about reaching out to podcast newsletters and letting them know about you? So maybe they can promote you. That's another one that Ari in particular knows a lot about. So maybe reach out to her to talk about that. She's got a great thread actually on her profile. It might be kind of hard to find, but it covers like how to pitch your podcast to podcast newsletters that are specifically trying to help people find podcasts to listen to. And that's usually not even paid. That's usually free, although I'm sure they would appreciate being paid for it.
Well, I mean, Greg's found pretty great success on going on these podcast playing apps and getting featured spots. So, I mean, I think that's a great one.
Well, yeah, Podcast Republic, right?
Yeah, well, it's not easy though. Like sometimes it's a form and you have to pitch like a good idea, like to get on Stitcher's main page or get on Apple Podcast, or now Spotify I think is doing it. Like you can't always just buy your way into the lists. So you just have to really kind of start to collect all this data, and the ones you can buy like Ariel got me into the Castbox Indie when she used to be over there, which no one's ever looked at that list because I'm still there. It's been like 2 years, which is sweet. And you can buy your way onto like Overcast and Podcast Addict and Podcast Republic and Castro, and the list goes on and on and on and on. So yeah, I mean, I can talk about this forever. I don't want to take up too much time, but DM me if you want some specific ideas. I'm happy to help anybody buy ads. And I'll tell you what I've done, what's worked. I wouldn't call myself an expert, other than an expert at spending my own money and looking at the results and either being happy or crying. Podcasting Power Hour is part of Indie Drop-In Network. If you are a podcaster looking to grow your listeners, check out IndieDropIn.com. Indie Drop-In is always free, and we have opportunities right now for comedy, true crime, scary, and paranormal podcasts. Just go to IndieDropIn.com to learn more.
Man, well, no, Chris has a podcast on one of the fastest growing industries. It's gambling on sports. So they've had a pretty good start. So good work, Chris. Keep it up. I do want to go to Jen, who was supposed to go first, but Tanner Campbell sucks.
No, it's fine. Well, actually, it's good to listen to everyone, because you keep forgetting the main thing when it comes to advertising. And if you're going to advertise, no matter what product, you need to know exactly where are you going to advertise and what kind of tools are you going to be using. But first of all, if you want to find the audience, one of the things that you want to do with the podcast to promote it is display ads. I mean, you should be in every single website or platform that is related to the audience that you're trying to reach. If you use a displayed ad campaign, like you're not only promoting by animating your podcast, you're promoting to also make people to click on it and go to that page and to see what is going on, to see what is happening with that podcast, what they're missing out, and basically to just start listening if they like it or not. I mean, that's the way I would go. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I totally agree with that. Google display ads are amazing because you can.
I didn't talk about Google display ads. I meant actually in general. Like you can actually do displayed everywhere with whatever search engine. It doesn't have to be just Google.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. But I was saying, like, with Google ads in particular, you can build your campaign around other websites. So you can model your destinations based on websites you want to have similar traffic to.
Yeah.
So it's really very interesting and very effective. But Jen, I'm going to message you so I can learn what display ads you're talking about, because I want to try it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me know.
Ariel, do you have something to add? I know you've been multitasking throughout this. Ariel?
No, again, I didn't hear the question, but now I am here and I'm ready.
It's all good.
That's becoming her thing.
Ariel, before we move on to the next person, let me kind of bring you up to speed, because I think you would actually have a really great answer here. We were talking about other places to advertise your podcast, and we covered a lot of them, but I know that you talk about using newsletters to do this. If you could just talk a little bit on that, because I think you've got a great thread on your profile, but if you could go into it a little bit here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a huge newsletter fan. Personally, I like to receive podcast recommendations through newsletters. I subscribe to like 10 of them. Some are weekly, some are daily, some are monthly, some are whenever the people feel like it. The reason it is important for you as a podcaster to be either advertising in these newsletters or pitching yourself to be featured in an editorial space is because that is where people are going to actually look for podcasts to listen to when they're ready to listen to podcasts. So they've opted in to these newsletters, right? They have chosen to receive these newsletters. They know what they're getting. Whereas when you're scrolling on social media, you could get anything, right? And people aren't necessarily primed to listen when they're scrolling on social media, but when they're in the mindset, they click to open a newsletter, they know what they're getting from that newsletter. I've talked to a lot of people who say that they have their phone open in one hand and then they have their email open on their laptop and they're like, okay, I'm going to type in the podcast that I find and I'm ready to find new podcasts to listen to this way. So there are a few ways that you can apply to be featured. Some podcast newsletters have applications where you can apply to be featured. Some it's more of a loose type situation where you would get to know that newsletter, get to know that curator, see where your podcast fits in, and then pitch them with a nice pitch that makes sense for them, that shows why your podcast makes sense for their audience. And I'm happy to talk more about that later, but you can also feel free to DM me. Yeah, thank you.
Jim, go ahead.
So yet again, I have this really outside the box thing. Worked well for me a couple years ago, but COVID kind of slowed everything down. It's Blip Billboards. And I went out and bought a custom domain name for it, which was adfreetalkradio.com. And I plastered it on billboards fairly cheap because, again, being a paranormal host, I'm off-peak anyways, traditionally overnight, and had a wild success with that, just targeting the larger metro areas at nighttime because there's more people out, and it only costs a few bucks a day. But if you're in the sports gambling business, I think you're in that same kind of arena where you could target whatever game in that city and have some good luck with that. So,
were these digital billboards, Jim?
Yeah, they rotate it out however often. But yeah, they're digital, and I like I said, especially it depends on your niche. But like if he's doing the Pittsburgh Steelers and he targets some ads in Pittsburgh, I think he could see some big traffic out of that.
Can you
similar to what I was saying for the display ads that I was mentioning? It's really similar.
Nice.
Would you mind, Jim, just for everyone's edification? I've never run a billboard ad.
Yeah.
You said a couple bucks a day. I'm sure that's not literal. Could you maybe break down the price a little bit there?
Yeah, actually it was literal because, like I said, I was buying off peak time, and it turned out to be like 4 or 5 cents a display. so I'd buy it overnight.
Whoa.
And
that's great.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, but it like I said, with a
Jeff Townsend.
time comes out to 75 cents or whatever when if you're trying to do like drive times and stuff. But if you play it right, you can get it pretty cheap. And like I said, there are times it worked well and there are times it just didn't work well. But overall, I felt it had a good result.
So I swear, Jeff, I'll let you have this back in a minute, but this is fascinating to me. You're saying per display because, of course, it's a digital display, so it's cycling. Yeah. How many cycles do you get in an hour?
Again, it depends on the billboard, but it's anywhere between 20 and 40. And they'll give you remnant space if they didn't sell it all.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I want to try this for sure.
Yeah,
I did billboards a few years ago for another product I was working on, and I was talking with Blip, and they rotate every 8 seconds. So if you're getting 20 an hour times 8 seconds per display, I'm not a math guy, but that's what 20 times 8.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. Hey, like I said, I'm not a math guy. I can code to save my life, but I cannot do math. I don't understand it.
Like I said, I was buying the overnight time when there was a lot of free extra money to be had. So
wait, can you talk about how you measure the growth, if at all, or what you've seen?
I can, because like I said, I bought a different domain to go through, which was easy for people to spot when they were driving, because my show is actually called The Mauer Report, and my last name is spelled kind of funny, so I went out and bought adfreetalkradio.com. So it was really easy to just see the traffic that was coming through there versus wherever else it was coming from. So
you were measuring it in the same way that you would measure like an in a magazine display ad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, did you see an uplift in listeners, or just traffic up to your website?
Both.
Nice.
So.
And do you think that those listeners have stuck around? I don't know how long ago you did this.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously there was some that drop off, but I mean, based off any kind of ad, you're going to have some drop off. So
yeah, definitely.
I would say a good third have been around. So yeah.
So cool. Yeah. Thank you for experimenting and sharing.
But you also can actually make it really specific to the type of target audience that you're trying to reach. So
you could double, like I was saying, if you were into sports and you could niche down on it. Like I said, I just read a billboard that said ad-free talk radio on it. No, I mean, a simple clip art and just the words. No fancy anything. Just trying to be really simple and pop in somebody's mind. And if they were curious, they would come for it. But like I said, I think I had fair success with it.
I'm going to start the oldgreg.com podcast. And I want to put a billboard up there.
Let's do it.
Seriously, though, I mean, that's why, we invite Jim, and then even Jen, just outside opinions. She's not even necessarily, making a podcast, but there's a lot of valuable opinions out there. So I thank you all for sharing them. Chris, was that helpful, man?
Yeah, you guys are awesome. I appreciate you.
Hey, we appreciate you. Thanks for taking the time to come up here and ask your question. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, guys and ladies, everyone here. I wanted to kind of pick your guys' brain about podcast apps, specifically apps that are more social, because Goodreads is out there, and Goodreads helps to share snippets and stuff with other people. I was thinking about something that provides more tools to indie podcasters, things like tracking the number of listeners and how long people listen to the episodes before they drop off, tracking like conversions for your CTAs, and providing those tools. So I like, what would you guys think about having something like that existing? And also, I've found that, for me personally, podcast apps are something that's just very hard to switch from. Like, if you knew that an app existed, would you just still continue to use your podcast app or Apple Podcasts or whatever you're using instead of switching? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Ariel, you want to go first? Tanner, you're going to let somebody else go first?
I'm just not sure I understand the question. So you're asking if there is an app that we enjoy, or if there should be an app that does this?
If there should be.
Okay. Interesting. So I think you can get a lot of that from your podcast hosting platform. And that can tell you where people are listening and which apps they're listening on. So it really depends if I'm understanding your question correctly, does somebody else want to take a stab or maybe have a better sense of what Paul's talking about?
I mean, there's definitely problems, Paul, and I get the feeling you are developing an app. This is why you're asking this question. There are problems with tracking these kinds of things because of the way that podcasts are distributed. So I think there's always space for an app that helps podcasters to understand how effective their calls to actions are, how effective anything they're doing is. Measurement is a problem in the space broadly. It's getting better all the time. And like Ariel said, podcast hosting providers provide statistics, what apps people are listening in, what parts of the country, down to the township sometimes, where they're listening, whether they're repeat listeners or new listeners, what your churn rate is. I just switched to a hosting platform called Sounder.fm, and I've been pretty impressed with some of the statistics that they have. They have a churn rate statistic, which I'd never seen before. I thought that was pretty cool. But there's always space for better tracking of anything related to marketing in this space. It's just the way it is. It's always going to be that way.
I just want to add that I think before you go and make an app, do extensive research into this, because it is very hard to get people to move from the app that they're currently listening on to a new app unless you do so much marketing. So find somebody who is doing things just like you wish, or an element of what you're doing, and then combine your resources, pool your resources, get 50-50 equity stake, whatever it is. But yeah, there's so many people trying to build an app, and the apps really take such a shift in user behavior.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I was looking for. So great, thanks.
Anyone else have anything to add to that?
No, I think it's all been said.
Yep.
I don't think that I could build an app and get any sort of market share with $50 million. So let me just say it that way. It's very, very, very hard.
You can give me that $50 million and I'll try.
Yeah, that's what anyone would do. That's the strategy for building a podcast app, is to blow through some VC funds.
Now we know how Tanner makes money. Hey, Paul, seriously, though, thanks for coming up and taking the time to ask that.
No problem.
Chandi, go ahead. You've been waiting patiently. It is your turn now. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I was the one who bought the coffee because Greg was practically begging me to. So.
Oh my goodness, you didn't have to do that. Thank you, though. That's incredible.
Thanks for checking your DMs.
My question is, so in terms of, we're new podcasters as of like 3 months ago. What do you think about Reddit in terms of like building a community? That's something we're trying to look into more.
I think Reddit's a great place to build community. I think it's a very specific and strange beast. And I think you should be a user of the platform prior to trying to jump into it as a creator, so that you have time to understand how it works. Reddit is very weird, and it works different from subreddit to subreddit to subreddit. It's like going to an entirely different country to go from one subreddit to a different one. So it's a strange place, but I think it's one of the best places to build community. As far as forum style is concerned, I think it's a great place to do that. And they've recently rolled out some new tools like live chat features and things that were not part of Reddit 5 years ago that have made community building even a little easier. It's a bit of work, though. Modding a subreddit is a bit of work, and you'll probably want to be more than just one. I don't know how many people are in your podcast, but you'd probably want more than one person to try to moderate that space.
Right. Yeah, it's me and my other co-host. Yeah, you're right. Each subreddit has their own rules, and the moderators work differently too. So, yeah, but I think your answer to my question it makes sense. It is weird. So there's no perfect way to go about it.
Tanner brings up a good point. You really have to spend time on there beforehand, which is where I've struggled with it before. You got to build up a reputation on there, karma. But that's a great point, because you got to put in a lot of time beforehand and get that engage with other posts before. But I think it's absolutely could be great. I've had more success with it with other things than podcasting as a topic. But I know that people are doing it right now on their that are having luck with talking about podcasting. So I'm all for it.
Yep. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to add to that? Greg, I see you're just keep unmuting and muting again. You've got to be wanting to say something.
No, just have restless thumb syndrome.
Oh, okay.
But I like Reddit. I mean, I think you got to decide if the demographic is similar to the people you're trying to go after. I mean, the unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to think about it, the demographic across these different social media platforms is a little bit different. There's lots of overlap, but there's also a core, demo. So I would look at that too.
And try to participate. Is it Chandi?
Yep.
Try to participate in similar subreddits and kind of become known as someone who contributes quality input to conversations that you didn't start but you choose to participate in related subreddits, because that'll get you, not only will you be able to gain comment karma in that way, that you'll be able to establish yourself as a trustable resource, somebody who's friendly on the platform, and a few months of that is going to make it is going to do two things, really. Three things. It's going to give you good comment karma so that you'll be able to actually start a group, because I think you need to have 1,000 karma to start a group, I'm pretty sure, or to start a subreddit. And then secondly, it will get you to have good relationships with the mods in those subreddits, so that when you start your group, you will have an easy time asking those other subreddit mods if you can promote your new subreddit in their subs. And that will be super helpful to you getting a good boost of initial members into your new subreddit. And then there was a third one. I can't remember what it was.
Thank you, Tanner, for repeating what I just said, but in longer, more detailed form. I appreciate
it. That's a philosophy. That's what I do.
Yeah, you gotta. You're a wordsmith. Put it that way. Anybody else have anything to add? Jim, Jen, Ariel? All right, Chandi, thank you for asking your question. That was a good one. Yeah, Reddit can be great. All right, so who do we got next? Edward Havens. Oh my goodness. Ed, what's going on?
Not much. Just finished walking the dogs and about to make some asparagus and shrimp risotto for the wife and watch some Star Wars and just enjoying a good life right now. I just saw all the people in here that I know. Hey, Tanner. Hey, Greg. Hey, Ariel. Hey, everybody. Wanted to specifically congratulate Tanner on hitting his milestone of followers. Congratulations, buddy.
Thanks. I think Greg is fessed up to ownership of that.
Well, thank you for that then, Greg.
That is untrue. It is a joke.
Oh, you were just giving me a hard time? I thought you were serious.
No.
We wouldn't spend money on followers for you. Come on. When I met Tanner, he had less than 100 followers on here. Remember that, Tanner?
Yeah, and no money on my Buy Me a Coffee. And
yeah,
Jeff
no
said my
coffees.
Name one time. Jeff said my name one time and I got famous.
He's now an influencer. Man, damn, I wish it worked like that for everybody. Ed, do you have a question, man, or do you just want to come up here and tell us about walking the dogs and love on Tanner like you always do?
No, I'm just here to support my friends and just be a part of this community that I love being a part of. You guys are fantastic. You and Tanner and Ariel have been great helps for my podcast the past year. And whenever I can join in and show my appreciation, I'm going to do it because I appreciate you all.
Ed, let me ask you this, though. Can you specify some of it? Because I know we've all talked to you quite a bit. Can you kind of rebranded what you're doing and had a little bit of growth from that? Do you want to touch up on that?
Well, basically, Tanner was nice enough to do a pod audit for the podcast back in January. He made a lot of great suggestions, and he even was kind enough to do some new artwork for the podcast, which was very kind of him. But as I was listening to his suggestions multiple times, it basically hit me that I was being a little stubborn about the name of the podcast, the Film Jerk podcast, because of the website that I had had for more than 20 years. Film Jerk was a popular movie news website, 15, 20 years ago, but I kind of let it drop in 2010 and was hoping for a kind of a nostalgia kick that never kicked in. So once I rebranded it as the 80s Movie Podcast, and I was completely shocked that while there are many variations of that name, nobody was using that specific name. So I grabbed it because it's just like, it just seemed like a no-brainer. Why, if you talk about 80s movies, why wouldn't you call yourself the 80s movie podcast? But I would not have gotten there if it wasn't for Tanner and his pod audit. So I feel bad that I didn't use the artwork that he made for Film Jerk. It was great artwork, but it just got me going into a different direction of thinking. But I needed that kick in the pants because the podcast was stagnating. And since the rebrand, the average first week listenership has gone up about 50%. And I'm enjoying seeing those numbers grow a little bit bigger each week.
Congratulations.
He did fight it pretty hard, all of our ideas there for a while.
Oh, I remember this role happening.
Yeah, he really did. He really did not want to change that name. And I was like, all right.
I believe he even originally hated the art that he's talking about right now.
He hated it, so I made art that was even worse, so he would hate it more.
I didn't.
I'll tell you what, Edward. Since I'm doing nothing but laying on my back, eating ice cream and fried fish sticks, I'll see if I can't make you. I can see if I can't make you some artwork this week.
AKA Monday night.
What a visual! What a visual, Ariel. I saw you came off mute. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I realized that I didn't know when the rebrand happened, but that my brain has registered that it happened because I knew Film Jerk and now I see the 80s movie podcast. And I appreciate that you were willing to rebrand because I have conversations like this with people all the time where I do a lot of consulting for podcasters, and yeah, I'll listen to the show and I'll give some edits on your transitions are too fast, or, you know, you need to give us some time to digest what you just said. But more so, and I just tweeted about this, I think the biggest disconnect for a lot of podcasters is in alignment between the show, the title, and the description of the show. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. They don't like to hear that what I see is not what I am getting when I hit play. And so it's really big to be able to be like, yep, you know what, you're right. I will rebrand for the sake of the show. And I think more people need to do that sometimes.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Jen, do you want to touch up on that a little bit? Oh, no, thanks, Ed. No, Jen, do you want to touch up on that? We haven't let you speak very much, but when and how do you approach that as far as when to rebrand and going about actually making that decision to do it? Because it is a big step, and it is kind of hard to look yourself in the mirror sometimes and say, and realize that's truly what you need to do.
Well, sometimes it happens, you know, like you have to face the experiences and everything that you're going through. But like as a brand, you're going to keep growing and you're going to keep learning as you go. And that's when you're going to be learning what mistakes you have made and how you can actually make them better. So when it comes to rebranding, it shouldn't be a bad thing. Instead, it's like something that you are evolving and make it like way better for your audience, like trying to reach exactly what you're trying to reach and to make it more specific. So kudos to you that you name it that way. It's like kind of obvious, but you thought about it first, which is really great. And it took you a little while for it, but it doesn't matter. You got there and you did it and you're doing it, which is great.
Coming up here on the end of this hour, and I do want to go ahead thank everybody that's been speaking and giving advice. I encourage everybody to give them a follow and reach out to them. All great resources and very personable. They will interact and engage with you and give you valuable information. My closing thoughts on this: I think this community and this industry is awesome because how many other industries can you really, and I've talked about this on my upcoming episode this week, and I've got DMs about it. How many other industries can you just talk to people that work in it so easily, and they're so accessible and they're so willing to just speak to you? And I think that's why this industry is great. It's my closing thoughts for this evening. We will go to Tanner Campbell next.
Oh, closing thoughts. Thanks for having me, man. Let me be part of this. I'll try to come in for your power hours more frequently. I'm sorry that I've missed the first few, but if I was helpful, you're welcome, I guess. And I'm glad that everybody gave me the opportunity to at least try to be helpful. And that's it.
Oh, Greg, go ahead. Your closing thoughts from this evening.
I think this group is a lot of fun. Sorry I missed last week. I did listen to the recording, which I found to be a lot of fun. So if you need anything from me, feel free to DM. And I'll see you next week if not.
Yeah, we had 168 people in here during the, all together during the recording, so it was great. But sometimes even at a smaller scale, we have time to get to everybody and really give out that information. Ariel, closing thoughts from this evening. I know you've been busy.
Thank you for having me. No closing thoughts.
Hey.
She's like, what was the question?
Exactly. Sorry, I was doing something else. No, seriously, anytime. It's always great to hear from you. And it's crazy because I've met so many indie podcasters, and really the top two people that people thank me for connecting them to are you and Tanner. I can't even count the number of people that have said, "Hey, thanks, Jeff, for the connection with Ariel." So you guys are great, and I really do appreciate what you do for me and the whole community. Jim, closing thoughts for this evening. Thank you, man. You've been a good, like you said, kind of off the wall. You've got out of the box, and you've provided some great information this evening, man.
Well, thanks for doing this, Jeff. I mean, it never really crosses my mind that the information that, like you guys mentioned Twitter Spaces. Well, when I started doing podcasts, Twitter Spaces wasn't even a twinkle in somebody's eye. So it's the market changes so much so rapidly. So it's good to hear and good to stay sharp on the current things that are going on. So that's why I'm glad to be here.
And Jim's one of the first people I connected with on Twitter, and we talked, a lot of podcasting through in the beginning. So appreciate it, Jim. Mark Binder, good. No, I'm just kidding, Mark. Jen, go ahead. Closing thoughts.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me and for thinking of me, even though I'm not a podcaster, but I'm happy to help everyone with my thoughts and my tips about advertising. So DM me for anything, and I'm just happy to be here.
No, I think from my experience in the business management world, it's always important to have people like you involved, and surround yourself with people like you as well. People, as people in the industry and what you're doing of your interest, but also outside. And I think you're a good example of bringing value to it. So thank you, Jen. Mark Binder, are you coming off of Are you coming off of
you're gonna skip over me? Okay.
I didn't know you're on the panel, but since you're up here, your closing thoughts.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, even though I'm relatively new into the podcasting space, I operate more on the service provider side. It's really exciting to hear what the challenges you guys are facing as the creators are, because that's what I'm trying to do, is help you guys remain creative. So I love just being the fly on the wall and listening. So if anybody has any questions or just wants to rant at me at something that they're going through, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Hey Jeff, could I plug somebody in the audience?
Yeah.
So anybody in here who's interested in hearing some really great examples of sound design, he's going to be mad at me for doing this, but you can find my buddy CJ Sound, and actually right next to him, Plastic Audio, my friend Michael. These two guys do such great work in sound. Michael Plastic Audio does a lot of like native capture out in the wild of just really cool fucking sounds. And CJ did the sound scoring and the sound design for the new podcast Solar from Kurtco Media that's doing really well right now. I think they've got over 50,000 listens already, and they've only been out for a couple of weeks or something. And they both just do such terrific work that if you're interested in, like capturing ambient sound, if that's something that sounds cool to you, something that could enrich your podcast, you got to follow Plastic Audio. And if you're interested in sound design, you got to check out CJ. They're both just great guys, and they do really good work. Oh, and CJ just corrected me, 500,000 downloads, which is far more impressive than 50.
Well, hell yeah. Thanks for the plug, Tanner. Now we'll close down the space. I'll stay on for about 10 to 15 my time. So another 7 minutes. We can shoot the shit or whatever. But no, seriously, I appreciate everybody stopping by and chatting. Have a great evening.
Thank you for listening to the Podcasting Power Hour. Everyone is free to participate on Twitter Spaces every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. To join, just follow Jeff at podcast_father or Greg at Indie Dropin. If you found this podcast helpful, go into your podcast app and write a quick review. Other podcasters will see it and know this show is worth listening to. Also, I'll put a few links in the show notes for ways you can support the show. I think by now you know we love our coffee. Have a great week.
Hey Jeff, what's your schedule on these? You do these every what, Monday night or whatever day it is, or every day?
Every Monday night at this time, 7 your time.
Okay, cool. When you sent me that invite, did you make it recurring?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe I'll try to make that a Monday thing. My Mondays are pretty light, so that'd be cool.
Well, I knew that because we used to record on Mondays, so I thought it seemed like a good light time for everybody.
Yeah. All right, see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Greg, man, thanks for helping out as always.
Yeah, no problem. It's lots of fun. Had some. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, when are you guys going to have another podcast garage? It's been a while.
Podcast garage is broken down, unfortunately. The garage failed to fix itself.
Tanner's too busy is what he's trying to say.
I wasn't gonna drive the bus over Tanner, but it was clearly his fault.
Yeah, everything is absolutely Tanner's fault. 100%.
Why not the two of you then? You don't need Tanner. Tanner's dead weight.
Well, that's what we keep telling him.
Yeah, he says the garage can't go on without him. So, but no, I think Greg and I have done episodes and stuff, and we're definitely, even Tanner, open to doing something. We just got to really manage it with our schedules currently. It originally started as an idea where it was just going to really be a monthly, like once a month thing on my podcast, since it had the audience to do so. But I think that it kind of morphed, and actually Tanner's idea, it morphed into something more into its own podcast, which, was a little premature. We weren't able to maintain the schedule, but I don't think we're opposed to making some episodes or something down the road, but the every week or two just wasn't very reasonable for us. I think that's the best way I can word it.
Well, I hope you guys bring it back, because it was a good thing and I enjoyed it. I'm sure I wasn't the only one.
What do you think of taking this audio and repurposing it as a podcast?
You asking me?
Anybody?
Well, we've talked about that already. I think it's doable. I mean, disclaimer that the quality is what it is, but the information is there. I don't know if anybody down there that's a listener agrees or not, but it'd be something valuable to listen to, in my opinion.
I mean, I've heard some of Pixie's project podcasts as an.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Indie Podcaster. I really do appreciate it. If you're interested in learning more about this podcast, you can go to podcastfather.com. If you're interested in all the different kind of work that I'm doing, you can go to jefftownsend.media. Contact form on there, various other different podcasts and projects that I'm involved in that I think you will enjoy. But again, thank you for supporting me, and make sure you support Indie Drop-In Network like we covered in the beginning. Get your podcast featured on there. Until I see you next time, take care of yourself and keep being you and keep being great.
Jeff Townsend Media. CG, good night.
And the question is, do I stay here? Will you be back? Are you gonna come back? Will you be back? Are you coming back?